The Falcon has landed. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. That's right, we're reviewing and demoing the Richie Faulkner Flying V Custom today. If you're not familiar with Richie, he's been playing with Judas Priest as the co-lead guitarist since 2011, replacing KK Downing. But he's also part of the new metal supergroup Elegant Weapons. And as far as I'm aware, this is his first Gibson signature model, but he did have an Epiphone, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and see what we're working with here. So far, the case seems very similar to the Dave Mustaine Custom Shop signatures, except for the latches are looking a little bit different. And we've got our Falcon insignia here. The logos are nice, crisp, and white in contrast to the black case. But this is one of the craziest flying Vs that the Custom Shop has come out with lately. You know, ever since like Zakk Wylde was making them do crazy stuff. Look at this. Pelhman Blue extended double pickguard. We've got a Floyd Rose and EMG pickups. This thing is a little bit crazy. So strap in, my friends, we've got a lot to talk about on this one. But first off, first impressions, this is quite the chunky flying V. I was almost expecting it to be like thinner or streamlined, but if anything, it feels bigger because usually flying Vs don't have binding on the top. Now, there's been a few limited editions. Check out the Grace Potter signature flying V from Gibson USA. But you can definitely tell this has more so the 58 Carina style body shape because it's got the broader shoulders to it. So I think that helps make it look chunkier too, on top of having giant pick guards on it. So this model's been teased for quite some time. Richie's been playing one on stage. People want to know about it because, as I told you earlier, there was an Epiphone from the 2018 model year, and those things were very similarly spec'd to the Gibson version. However, now we've got Pelhman Blue instead of ebony, and a few other personal touches. It was a limited edition and brand new. They were about $1,000. However, if you look at recent sales on Reverb, they currently sell anywhere between $1,400 to $3,000 depending on condition. So yeah, Gibson listened. They saw there was enough interest there to satisfy a limited edition custom shop run. So they decided to price these at $6,999, which, yes, that is a lot of money for a guitar. However, keep in mind, if you regularly buy Gibson custom shops, I would honestly say that is a fair price, especially since they limited it to 100 units only, and a portion of the proceeds are actually going to a few charities of Faulkner's choice, which the last time we saw that was on the Rick Beato signature double cuts, so that seems to be a new thing that signature artists are doing. However, personally, I kind of feel the release of this model was a little bit botched. Apparently the release date kept getting pushed back on these, but not all the dealers got the memo. So even though the official launch for this model was June 27th of 2023, I first saw one on Reverb as soon as June 9th, and it was listed for a $2,000 premium. But since nobody knew what the actual retail price was, it ended up selling. But then even a week before official launch, I was offered one from a well-known shop, and then as soon as 3 days before launch, one from a private seller. So needless to say, a lot of these got out to the public before they should have been. And on launch day, usually I learn about these new models from Gibson's YouTube page. Their video didn't come out till 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think that might have been a scheduling error. It might have supposed to have been 9 a.m. It happens to the best of us. I think I accidentally did that like a month and a half ago too. But the Instagram pages were all on top of it. So with 100 of these things made, we'll have to see how long it takes for them to sell out. I'm recording this on day 3 of them being public, and there's still a few of them left if you're interested. And for that price, besides just the guitar, you also get the case we talked about, and they treated us right with some cool case candy. Starting with one of their very nice premium COA booklets. It feels like it's real leather, smells like it too. We get a nice little photo of Richie over here playing it, as well as what number you have out of 100. Mine happens to be 95, so almost the end of the run. And then we have a goodie bag of some sorts with gold pull strings that has some nice treasures, including a sweet pin set. I love this way more than the wooden mini guitars because it's a little bit more practical and usable for most people, and they can make the fine details look better because that's the guitar, Richie playing it, as well as his emblem. They're all separate pins. We get a custom pick set should you choose to open it and use them. Next up, we get an iron-on patch if you want to rock your guitar out on your jacket. It looks like this on the back. And then lastly, in typical Gibson fashion with their big custom shop releases, they love doing pennants. Except for this one's a little bit more of a flag. Which if you want to make your own, I guess you could contact this company in Buffalo, New York. And hidden inside there, you get a signature pair of his sunglasses. Kind of like the Slash hat. It works. But oh, I just noticed my glasses are all scratched up. Ah, that's a shame. It was even in the cloth. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but oh well. However, unfortunately, I am missing my switch tip. Usually it's in with all the other case candy, and I've scoured this case for it, so I don't know where that ended up. I'll probably have to get a replacement. Then we also have our new pre-pack checklist. You can tell this one was completed in mid-May, and it's almost one of the last serial numbers. So assuming they actually go in order, that seems to line up with the story of these things being delayed for release for quite some time. Then lastly, a little hang tag with a case key and Floyd Rose adjustment tools. So far, from a guitar reviewer standpoint, I really like the presentation. I feel the pricing was fair on these. They didn't make too many. It's the perfect sweet spot. But to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it on our workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Oh boy, that took forever. This has just a whole bunch of stuff to take apart. But my biggest question when these things came out, is it just a pickguard, or are we hiding some sort of a route down here? So let's figure out what's underneath this behemoth of a guard. Alright, so we do have some sort of a channel route right here, but what is coming through here? Well, if you noticed, there is no output jack on the front, and there's none over here on the edges. It's just a regular style Gibson jack over here, so it's not like how Mustaine did it with a Stratocaster style one. So they must run a bit from here into there, and then they have the CNC machine put a route right there. That way they can get all these wires through this thing. So if you didn't like that and you wanted to replace the pickguard, just know you at least have to cover that much. So best just leave it as is. But the backside of the pickguard is actually black, and it is a 4-ply material. And then the pickups in here are active EMGs, and it's actually Richie Faulkner's signature set of EMGs. That's what the RF stands for, RF neck. Then we've got the front Richie Faulkner. Being a modern EMG, they're based on a quick connect system, which terminates over here on the single volume pot. However, your toggle switch is regular Gibson style and it's soldered. Then it looks like we've got the usual EMG preamp or whatever it's called in there. It appears just to have used an adhesive pad to put it in that area. And then as we keep going, we see something go through here. That's the battery pack in the back. So thank goodness they put one of those on there. Otherwise you'd have to tear this thing apart every time you need to change out your 9-volt. We do have a long neck tenon. Looks like we might have had a little bit of a chip out right there or something. As far as the cavities go, they're actually very well finished. But you definitely have to keep your pickup rings on because these cavities are connected until you get to your bridge pickup cavity route here. So a whole bunch of routes connected. You're going to have to keep this double pick guard. My advice to you, if you own one of these, never take it apart. Getting all those wires back in those routes is tricky. But I wanted to point something out. What's interesting is usually Gibson pickup rings are different for your position. So the neck pickup looks kind of like this, but then the bridge pickup typically utilizes a bigger one. But since this is utilizing a Floyd Rose, it actually technically has 2 neck pickup rings for the very shallow profile. The action straight from the factory on this one was ridiculously low, like almost too low. It needed to be raised a tad in my opinion. But pay special attention to the pickup covers. Normally EMG pickups look like this. They have a flat black exterior. And one of my favorite things about the Uncle Milty custom that James Hetfield uses is he actually modified the EMGs to look like regular humbuckers. So it appears for Richie Faulkner's signature set, he kind of made them look like regular PAFs. They still have the EMG branding, and then you've got the faux pole pieces on it. So looks traditional, but doesn't sound traditional. But here's your Floyd Rose. I don't really know too much about these, and I'm not going to be the best at demoing it, but it's there if you want it. As far as the route on the top, they actually did a very nice job on that. They finished it all in too, so it's not like exposed wood or anything like that. They're not trying to make that a feature. Oh, and if you're curious why in some of the B-roll shots you're seeing a toggle switch tip, no, I never found it. I just borrowed that off of a different guitar I was also filming at the same time. But here you can see your multi-ply binding on the top. But the thing to know about Pelhman Blue finishes is a lot of times they get put on a little thicker than some of other Gibson's colors. So you can actually feel a ridge between where the Pelhman Blue stops and the binding begins. So that's not a big deal on the body, but I bring that up because you also feel that on the edge of the neck, which I'm sure some people would probably say, I don't like that, it doesn't feel too good. And if you ever see like a substance built up around here, it's just their buffing compound. I've been cleaning that off as I go. But here's another cool spec about this thing. That's a big guitar, right? This is advertised as a premium 1-piece body. Most of the Carina ones are 2 pieces. So that is a premium spec here that kind of helps make it be worth what it is. Because that's a big old slab of wood to make that out of one. But we can move on from the mahogany body to the mahogany neck and the ebony fretboard. Got your typical mother of pearl block inlays, but of course your signature one at the 12th fret. And then what I was talking about earlier on the body, this is that lip that I'm talking about. The finish does stand a little bit proud of the binding. So if you're a thumb wrap player, you might notice that, but it's not because the fretboard's shrinking or anything, it's just because the thickness of the finish. That is not unique to this model. 24 3/4 inch scale length with a 12-inch fretboard radius with a nut width of 1.69 inches. That increases to 2.10 by the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.87 and 0.92 by the 12th. It is a very thin and wide feeling neck. Here that is on the contour gauge. First fret, 12th fret. Regular Flying V custom stuff, multiply binding, Gibson logo, and our custom inlay. And everything's looking good with our truss rod. Here's our shaven cover. Here's a good example of what I was talking about earlier, the buffing compound. You just have to scrape it away. If you ever get a slightly older Gibson, it's actually kind of a pinkish color, so it looks like they might have changed what they used. So now let's talk about our nut. Got a Floyd Rose system, so it uses a locking nut system. It secures to the guitar using 2 screws, which you can see the holes right there. And then you've got these mechanisms that just lock over top of your strings. I saw something I didn't necessarily like. When this is installed, the headstock binding falls a little bit short. So on this end, you've got a little bit of black exposed. But the other side, oof, you've got mahogany showing. That was a little bit exaggerated, but here it is in the correct position. Now to be fair, that is the treble side of the neck. Are you ever gonna see it? Probably not. But now that I pointed it out, you can kind of see it. It's like they needed to either bring a little bit more black paint over here or just like continue the binding. Because the binding was almost enough right there. It just hardly got shaven through as you start to go at a downward angle here to get our headstock pitch, which I measured to be about 16 degrees. Now we get to have some fun on the back. Usually a Flying V wouldn't have anything back here, but we have a Floyd Rose cavity. Pretty much all your typical stuff. However, I did notice there is a big chip out on this guitar. Now thankfully they were just able to finish it over and they didn't have to scrap this beautiful one-piece body because of something so tiny. Nothing too fancy going on with your back plate cover. And this is the battery compartment that I was talking about earlier. So it's secured by 4 screws. So to open that up, you just pull it up like this, and then it flicks out like so. And for all you future watchers, if you want to make sure you have the original battery in your guitar, make sure it's the ProCell Constant. That's what it originally shipped with. That'll be such great trivia information in 30 years. Keep it in the case when it dies. But the battery just slips in like so, and pushes in place. Easy. But I was curious what was in here, and I was glad I checked because there's actually a very small finish chip right there. Thankfully, it's covered by the door, but the rest of that is just a pretty basic route. And then eventually you see the cavity that we saw the other side of earlier. There's our output jack again. Strap button right here so you can tie it all in together. Then another one right here. And I'm going to tell you right now, in the future, you will eventually start to see a line right here. These metallic finishes are always prone to seam line showing. You're either going to see it right here, unless they actually constructed these 50 style, then you might see a seam line right here if they hug the body to the back of the neck. Check out this SG Elegant if you're curious about what I'm talking about, or any of the Carina Flying Vs. But you'll definitely get some lines showing on the side of the neck. But right now, this one's good. The back of the neck is a nice, beautiful blue. Seems to be a pretty even hue. Maybe a slightly darker dot right there in the finish. And no volutes, no Richie signature thing back here, which is kind of a shame. I think it would have been cool had we'd seen that design printed on the back of the headstock right here, then had a different style truss rod cover. We've got the regular Grover tuners on here, and our serial number RF095. One of the last ones made. All said and done, this one weighs 8 pounds 5 ounces. It feels heavier than that though. Quite a chunky body. So let's go ahead and plug it in, and trust me, I'm not the right guy to demo this guitar, but I'm gonna do my best. Just check out Richie rocking it for 30 seconds in Gibson's video. These pickups are ridiculously hot, like active EMGs, of course, but that whole demo was me on 7. Here it is on full 10. So you'll definitely want to work your volume controls if you want more of a normal tone. At least you've got the volume knob to control that. No tone though. But honestly, it's got a Floyd Rose, it's got active EMGs. This is meant for a heavy distortion. Let's give it a try. Now that we know all about Richie's new signature guitar here, what are my final thoughts on this? It's an interesting piece. I will 100% say this is not the guitar for me. I'm not the biggest fan of active EMG pickups or Floyd Roses. It's just more headaches than it's worth for a single guy that doesn't have a guitar tech to make it perfect every single day. But I've got to say, this is one of the most fascinating flying Vs that the Custom Shop has done in a long time. I love the aesthetic vibe of the whole double pickguard. Is it without its flaws? No, but I'm glad it exists because it's a great collection piece for somebody who really likes Richie Faulkner and any of the bands that he is associated with. I guess that's another thing that might be a downside to this one, is it's very signature. Like, you can't take this thing out and say, hey, it's my own guitar that I want to make my own identity with. There's no other flying V that looks like this unless it's a Faulkner. The other thing is, I wasn't really a big fan of the neck profile. This is definitely geared towards somebody who is a shredder, which obviously he is. I'm not. So it doesn't work for me, but I'm sure it'll work for other people. But what I'm talking about with this profile is it's slim, but not like too flat on the back, but it feels very wide in my hands. So if you're interested in being the next owner of this Faulkner Flying V Custom, you can check it out on my website, troglysguitarshow.com. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed checking it out with me here today, and we will catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.